So I'm a complete, I mean, you might have noticed this, I'm a complete and total rookie at this whole TV thing. And I went down to the White House Correspondents' Dinner Saturday. I was like in the shower afterwards. I can't get clean. I just can't get clean. It was so... Anyway, you know, it made me think over the weekend, gosh, you know, the president has made all kinds of promises, and they have come true, almost every single one of them. Hope and change? Yeah, watch this.
I don't think that, you know, engaging in constant partisan bickering solves our problems.
We're up against decades of bitter partisanship. Let's resist the temptation to fall back on the same partisanship and pettiness and immaturity that has poisoned our politics for so long.
Yeah.
I think maybe Rush Limbaugh was the 20th hijacker, but he was just so strung out on Oxycontin he missed his flight. I hope the country fails. I hope his kidneys fail. How about that?
I have to tell you, you know, there's one thing to say something on television or whatever. I mean, that's just what comedians do. I have to tell you, sitting in the room with the President of the United States, I mean, I told you last week I was going to wear these shoes, you know, these ones, and I didn't. And the reason why I didn't, I could blame it on my wife, and my wife said, "You're not wearing that." The reason why I didn't is because he is the President of the United States, and there is some kind of decorum that happens. The things that even he said and Wanda Sykes said might be funny in some scenarios, not that. Kind of sounded like bitter partisanship to me. But there is one thing that is changing, and that is global warming. We may see the end of global warming. You know, I mean, not global warming's not going to end. They're still going, but the phrase global warming is. President Obama's Council on Environmental Quality is reportedly meeting with a marketing group today. A group that says phrases like global warming and cap and trade are just not effective. Change the language. Don't actually change anything. Just say you're going to change things. Those words are too politicized. They conjure up images of Al Gore. Last week, we talked about the Republican listening tour, and I told you, we're being focus grouped to death. Stop. Both parties, stop it. Just say what you mean and mean what you say. Well, now the LA Times reports the pollster, the Mellon Group, recently shared a survey with the White House that says people are interested in curbing global warming if it creates jobs. Sound familiar? Do you remember this from the election?
If I'm president, I will invest $15 billion a year in renewable sources of energy. We will create 5 million new clean energy jobs over the next decade. Jobs that pay well. Jobs that pay well and can't be outsourced. We're going to open up those closed factories. Those factories that used to make steel, they're going to make wind turbines. Other factories, they're going to make solar panels.
Solar panels that are poisoning people now in China, and wind turbines. Oh my gosh, wind turbines sold by General Electric. What a weird... Anyway, global warming is not the only change. Washington has become a war of words now. All this week, we're doing an inconvenient segment, talking about real solutions to some of the world's biggest problems from an inconvenient book, now available in paperback. I have to tell you, political correctness could be the biggest problem this country is facing because we are not talking to each other anymore and actually speaking frankly, and that's what needs to happen. For more answers on the real solution, get the book. But for now, we have Andrew Breitbart. He is the publisher of Big Hollywood and a columnist with the Washington Times. Andrew, I can't take the changing of the language anymore. This is craziness.
Well, I'm so glad that you're noticing that this is the big issue of the Obama administration. Obama is a graduate of the George Lakoff School of Word Maneuvering. He's the professor from Berkeley. And he's just like Frank Luntz, and God bless Frank Luntz. He's a friend of mine, but I think that the American people at a time of tumult, of economic crisis, want straight language from people. And the propaganda that comes from the administration and is pushed off by MSNBC, CNN, the New York Times, before we even have a lexicon of what these words mean. They're just mind-numbing.
Okay, here's the real problem, as I see. It's causing us not to deal with actual issues. You want to talk about global warming? Great, let's talk about global warming. But now they're not. Now, because we know that's bullcrap, now we're going into creating new clean, not green, clean jobs, which has that nice fuzzy sound to it, but isn't the same issue. We're no longer even talking about the same issue. And there's another thing that, have you read Animal Spirits yet?
I'm reading it right now. Books on tape, right in my ear.
Can you, I mean, we have the authors of Animal Spirits on the program later on this week. When you're listening to it or reading it, Andrew, are you not saying, oh my gosh, I see exactly what they're doing right now?
Well, they can only get away with it if the media lets them get away with it, and that's the huge problem. Is that at the same time that they're changing language and they're playing off of our fear, the mainstream media is letting them get along with it, and for a very brief period.
No, go ahead. I don't mean to interrupt.
No, I mean, you just saw this. You saw that you played the segment with Wanda Sykes. Who dictated that Rush Limbaugh have a target on his head but Rush Limbaugh the first week of his administration? Mm-hmm. These people, when Obama says jump, the media says how high, and they've targeted the people who would question this language and say that we're enemies of the state. So while they're creating euphemisms to make our real enemies in the world, like terrorists, seem like they're mollified, decent people, they're isolating ex-vets, Rush Limbaugh, and elevating the language. It's an anti-euphemism.
How long does this last, Andrew? I mean, at some point you run out of words. I mean, look, global warming is global warming. A wheel is a wheel because we call it a wheel. You can call it a horn, but it eventually becomes a wheel. So a lie is a lie is a lie. At what point do we go, wait a minute, you've changed this word. It's the same meaning from like 3 different things. You just keep changing the word.
Well, thank you for what you're doing, because from the word go, it's been political correctness. And I can't even talk about the stimulus and my problems with it, because the language is framed by people who have changed words. And the average person at a cocktail party doesn't even know what TARP is or knows what stimulus is versus taxation or investment being taxation. It will probably be 6 months and all of the spending out before people actually understand the issues that were just played out.
Yeah. Okay, Andrew, thank you so much. I appreciate it. We'll talk again. Now listen, in my book, Political Correctness, which is fantastic. I don't know who wrote it, but it's fantastic. Anyway, it's out in paperback. In chapter 12, where I write, you can't say that. #1 New York Times bestseller, Inconvenient book, available now in paperback. Do we have the quote on political correctness? Do we have it? Okay, here it is. Being politically correct is not just a cutesy attempt to make people feel better. It's a larger, coordinated effort to change Western culture as we know it. Early Marxists, this I wrote before I really was onto the progressives, it's better as progressives, but Marxists did it too, designed their game plan long ago and continue to execute it today. Control the argument by controlling the language. Those with radical agendas understand that plan well and are taking advantage of an oversensitive public. It's available in bookstores everywhere. All right.